Hey, Mike.
Hey, how's it going, Derrick?
I think you know how it's going.
I've got some, inclination
We're
towards
at
that
that
fact.
stage of our life school year where coming and going, which way or what's happening? I'm just here trying to make it in the here and now.
That's right.
So, Diet Dr. Pepper, it'll get you there. So, speaking of timing, I have a question that I need to ask Mike. And this question, for most of the world in America, well, for most of our country, a nation, whatever you want to say, it's marching season. And so we rehearse marching a whole lot. And a lot of us in the state of Texas, anyway, are rehearsing with the end goal of a, a marching adjudication panel telling us how well we did. So we're headed towards contest. And on the way, it's kind of become, and I'm going to ask you this because I don't remember it being like this as much when I was in school. There's almost like a whole season now. It's festival season,
Yeah.
marching festivals
Bantober.
everywhere. I like it. So, can we talk about that a little bit today?
I guess so. I
Uh,
mean, yes, we can.
well, here's my questions. I have no
Okay.
doubt that almost all marching festivals are well intentioned, but can you talk to me and maybe some of our other music educators who are experiencing this phenomena? Necessary um, in small doses, moderation. Let's just talk festivals.
Okay.
Are they valuable?
Oh, definitely valuable. I think, but the answers we give today is certainly not a one size fits all. It depends on fitting the number of festivals and the type of festivals you go to your organization and the needs of
Okay.
your organization. Um, there was a time when ancient history, I suppose now, when we just had UIL region marching, and at the time we called it district marching. By the way, it
Right.
was district marching,
Right.
and so we did that, and that was pretty much all we did. We might do like a local university might have a little festival or something, and we would maybe do that. And I remember we did one in high school. We would do one festival, then we do UIL, and that was the end of it. We had two little contests we went to, and then if we made a one, and even if we didn't make a one, someone's mama made a cake, and we all ate cake the next day, and we watched, listened to the critiques or whatever, and we were done with it, and we went on to the Christmas concert.
Right.
Then uh, organizations like Bands of America and U.S. Bands and some of those organizations, which are really great organizations, by the way, they decided to infiltrate the Texas system because they wanted to get their foothold in Texas because we have more bands.
Right.
I don't know if we have all better bands, but we definitely have more bands. And so, and it's, they do it because they do want bands to get better, but they are corporations,
Right.
you know, and you can look on their webpage and like US bands had probably 40 contests last Saturday
Wow.
around the nation,
Already.
around the
Yeah.
nation already. Yeah, they've already started. BOA is already starting their contest, and then so Texas thought in its they thought, well, we need to kind of not fight back on this, but we if we want a state champion and things of that, we need to start an area state kind of concept because otherwise BOA is going to take that over. And they're right. BOA would have. They'd
Right.
have done the official state championship. It wouldn't be UIL. And so they put together area state. So now we've got that going on.
Right.
And then band directors went, hey, I've got a way we can make money and make our band better. Let's do a festival.
Right.
So now, like at Wiley, for when I was there 19 years, we did a big country marching festival. And in fact, this year I'm judging in it. And then I inherited that from the wonderful Mr. Lewis Thornton when he started it like 4 years before I came. So all of them have good intentions,
Right.
but it's sometimes it's like eating at Golden Corral. There's a lot of things to eat, but when you leave, you don't feel like you got a meal. Let's see, I had a pork rib and I had a sundae and I had some cornbread. You know what I mean? You just have a little
Dude.
bit of everything, and you leave, and it's like I don't feel like I ate, but I ate like 4,000 calories, but I don't feel
Seriously.
like I had a meal. And festivals
That's
can be
funny.
that way,
Yeah.
if we're not careful.
All right. So you've answered one of my questions already
Okay.
because always looking to help, always, and listen, some of us might not be geographically in a place where we can do a lot of it, but is there, I don't know, are there some guidelines we can follow? I got no problem with the fundraising aspect of it. I really don't.
Yeah.
But realistically, sometimes that's what it is.
Yeah.
And
That's what ours was.
there are some festivals that we like to go to more than we might like to go to others. Are there some cautionary tales? Are there some, hey, let's talk about open entry, let's talk about best in class? How do you help your group in this festival season on your way towards UIL if you're in Texas
Hmm.
without, how much is enough? Or are there things we can do that might actually be hurting what you're trying to accomplish more than helping?
Yeah. And there's certain parts. I'm a member of that band directors marching band, and we perform at different things. And a lot of my friends in that are Ohio, Illinois, Indiana. They're up in that corridor, and they don't do as much marching per se as far as contests, but they do lots of parade contests. So every band has their thing of, and it comes to your question, how much is enough? How much do we do that helps us? And then when does it become busy work? So I think some things to really kind of think about. One is realize that no matter what you schedule, there's going to be conflicts.
Right.
And you've got to figure out immediately, are you going to handle this school conflicts versus non-school? My girls' volleyball team is going to this tournament. Then this kid has a church camp. That there's no, it's a lot of gray area.
Right. Right. Right.
Family functions such as weddings, or obviously they've got to go to the grandmother's funeral, so that's not, you're not going to, punish a kid for something like that. But what about just a family reunion? What about their second cousin is going to graduate from basic training at Lackland in San Antonio? You've got to put a lot of thought into this. Church activities. I think for me, um, I probably allowed more excused absences than I probably should have. Um, but
Right.
I was pretty much a softie if they at least communicated, and the earlier the better. If they said, "Hey, my big brother's going to graduate from Lackland Air Force basic training on this date, and now it's April, but I notice on our calendar in October, that's when we're doing this contest. Can I ask for that day off?" I'm pretty much a softie on that. It's like,
Right.
man, they took time to respect me and to come and talk to me. I'm not going to make a big deal about it. But if
And
they
they
just don't
read
show up
what
that
I sent
morning,
home.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And if they just don't show up, maybe I guess that's a different thing. But, just kind of think about that, because I say that because the more festivals you do, the more conflicts there will be, the more problems you're going to have, the more meetings with admin. So just on the emotional turmoil level, don't do more festivals than you have to do. Don't
Right.
do them just to do them, because it's not worth the trouble. And on top of that, Derek, it's not worth the cost.
Right.
If it's just busy work, we're just going to go to festivals, because it costs money for diesel and entries and meals and
And that's what I was
etc.
going to say. Is this a budget thing too? I mean,
Oh yeah.
because at some point, maybe that money's spent better somewhere else. And that's up to you to decide. I'm not trying to, you know, be your Jiminy Cricket, but if you're strapped for money already, why burn all the diesel, buy all the meals, pay the entry fees?
Yes. And in some places in our West Texas area, we have a lot of geography. There's just a lot of roads out here. Well,
Exactly.
there's very few roads, they're just very long roads. So for us to go to a festival, it might be 3 hours there, however much time it takes at the festival, 3 hours back, maybe three meals,
Right.
lots of mileage. Where if you live on, I call it the I-35 corridor, where there's just almost all our Texas population is right there, I-35 and I-45.
Right.
Those guys might go to a festival, and it still takes a little bit of diesel, but it might be 10 miles away,
Right.
and they're done with it. So it kind of depends on where you're at the state. You can do a lot more festivals if they're all really close.
Sure. Okay. Well, again, risk reward or cost benefit. I don't know what the right terminology would be. I'm trying to sound like I know what I'm talking about. Essentially, I think you need to weigh the cost on your students and parents as well. And you've already touched on that some,
Yeah.
but you might be asking more out, especially go ahead and let me say this. If it's your first time there and you're used to doing a whole lot of festival type stuff, but the group you inherited is not,
Right.
you might be in for more fights than you actually care to be in.
And on top of that, do the band parent organization, do they pay for the festival trips or does the school? Because if
Right.
you layer 5 festivals on top of them, then all of a sudden the band parents are kind of like, I don't know if we can do this. If the school does it, then like you said earlier, you're choosing between, do I want to buy, you know, 4 tubas for the concert band, or do I want to go to these 4 festivals? Because the cost for me to go to a festival with my marching band was about the price of a tuba.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you add it all together.
But by the same token, you're not don't get blinders on, because if you ask your booster organization to pay for it, that means you're just added more fundraisers for them, and your kids are going to have to do car washes and or whatever they do to raise money. It's
Right.
not just that one day.
Yeah, no kidding.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
It's kind of a spiral effect. Um, Another thing to kind of think about, don't just haphazardly sign up for a festival. Figure out, is this festival more for big school, small school?
Okay. So
Um,
why is that important?
because the judging, the critique you get back will be more geared towards your experience.
Right.
If you take a 2A band and go into the inner sanctum of San Antonio and enter a BOA contest, and you're between all those mega BOA Grand National champions, and you're just trying to teach fight song and so forth, and trying to, and you don't know any better, and you just think, hey, yeah, this will be a really cool experience for my kids. All the critique you get back will be almost meaningless to your kids because it'll be things that are more geared towards bands of 180, to 6A level using electronics. And vice versa. If you have a really strong 5A, 4A band, you might not want to go to a contest that's geared more towards 2A or 3A, because then you'll get critique back that's just make sure that kid's in step,
Right.
or, they won't address the things that really affect what you do. So the level and quality of critique is vastly different according to the organizations.
And
UIL is more of a contest for the most part of who plays the cleanest and who marches the cleanest. That's an oversimplification. BOA is kind of on the opposite end of that spectrum. You still have to march and play, but they give you lots of credit for what you're attempting to do, the creative process, the whole arc of the show. And
the
so,
aesthetics.
yeah, aesthetics. So, and US bands is kind of in between those two. And then every festival is absolutely different. You know what I mean? So
I
just
do.
know what you're getting into with that festival. You might have to decide on are we doing a festival to make ourselves incredibly better as an organization, or does my band need to be shamed? Do they think they're all that? And we're just going to march into UIL, into
A
area, and
reality
everyone's
check.
going to go, "Oh my goodness, that's the best band that ever touched the planet." Said, and all the kids have, yeah, might want to enter them in a show where you're between two really hot shot bands, and the kids will look around and go, we might have a little more work to
Yeah.
do.
Are
So there's some
you
validity to that.
trying to tell me that a high school band might be entitled and or comfortable with their past?
Yeah. On my personal note, I did the DeSoto contest with my band, and their festival, unbeknownst to me, well, I knew it, but I didn't think it through. Okay, stupid. But you entered by classification by the number of woodwinds and brass marching on the field.
Okay.
It wasn't 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A. It wasn't student population. How many woodwinds and brass do you march?
It was
And so we
participant,
got
right?
stuck between the Colony and LD Bell High School because we marched 180 kids total, and that was about the size of those two bands. Now, were we in the league with those two bands? No way. No way. They were
Right.
they were in a different universe. And we all looked at each other in the warm-ups like, I don't know what we're doing here. The kids were looking at me and I was looking at them. And if if I had nerve, I'd have gotten back on the buses. So let's go eat pizza and forget this. And the band did well, but that was not a good experience because of my lack of research.
Yeah.
I just thought we'd be amongst other 3A bands our size, and it never dawned on me till I got there that it was
Uh,
going to be 6A bands, you know.
so maybe a good point there is think big picture. What is this actually going to do for the trajectory and or uh, the 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 trend of this band that we're trying to create, the culture, uh, the level of competitiveness, and maybe an honest conversation ahead of time is, hey guys, we have a chance to go to this festival. I'm going to tell you, the big boys are there.
Yeah,
So
kind of amp it up, man.
you
Amp it
got
up.
to understand what we're dealing with. Are you in? Are we good? And I think sometimes maybe we just need a win. That
Yeah.
sounds terrible, but
No, no, that's right. That's what I was going to say. The opposite side of the coin is, you know, the band's been struggling for a couple of years. It might be your first year in, second year in with this school. Sometimes it's nice to go to a contest where they give the outstanding in class 3A. There's only two 3As entered. And you know your band's
right,
probably going to be better than the other 3A because
right,
the other 3A tends to make fours and fives at contest, and we've made ones and twos. And I hate to say it that way, but sometimes it is kind of nice just to go somewhere and be the big fish for a second. Gets put in the local paper, band wins outstanding in class, and sometimes we need that too. We need some kind of validation of the work we're doing is helping. And like you said, sometimes we got to get in there and tell the kids, hey, we're in with the big boys now. You know, this is the unofficial state championship of class 4A, you
right.
know, so let's get after it, you know. So it all depends on what you need for your kids.
And I agree with everything that you said so far. I'm just trying to, I love band. I love music. I was trumpet and vocal major. I love all the music. I love it. Theater, musical theater, but I want it to be a positive experience.
Hmm.
And I just worry, and you can tell me if I'm overthinking because I have that bent, but I just worry that we we do too much and burn people out before we ever get where we're trying to get with them.
I think that's a valid point. You can definitely burn them out, especially the competitive nature of it, because all of a sudden the kids start to think that all we are is chasing trophies and whatever, and that's certainly not a good culture for your band program. And also just the simple physical exhaustion. I know there's festivals I went to because they're usually on Saturdays, and
Right.
we would get back from either Lubbock or Midland or whatever. It'd be 2 or 3 in the morning that Friday night or that Saturday morning.
All right.
We
Help
would
people
send the kids.
understand that what you just said.
Yeah.
It's not just a town. That's how many hours on a bus each way.
Yeah, about 3 hours,
Yeah.
sometimes 4 hours. We'd get back at 3 in the morning after doing a whole day with pep rally and school. And then we'd send the kids home. Some of the kids would sleep on their uniform bags. They just lay them out in the band hall and just lay down for a couple hours. Some would go up and get on the bus and sneak into the bus yard and sleep in the bus for two
That's
hours and wait for me to come pick up my bus and bring it back down. I would, I hate to say this, but there were festivals. I would get back so late the Friday night, I would literally just sit at my desk and lay my head down on the desk and go to sleep and set my alarm. Then I'd get up and walk down to the gym in the school and take a shower and change clothes and go to the home ec room and have a bowl of cereal.
yeah,
I'd come
yeah.
back to the band hall and it's time to go. How much of that is reasonable?
Or healthy.
What I just explained certainly is not reasonable, but we did it, you
Right.
know. So I say take that into account because some of your kids are the band kids. That's all they do is band. Most of your kids have other activities, and we've got to recognize that, you
Right.
know, because it can be physically too demanding for them.
So I need to say really loud for the people that are starting to furrow their brows. We're not, I'm not saying festivals are bad. And there's lots to choose from. I might be
Yeah.
saying you don't have to go to every one of them and expect positive results out of everything you. How do we find that balance for our band? I guess that's really where I'm going.
Well, I hate to say it this way, but you kind of have to sort of guess. You just make
Okay.
an intelligent guess of, I think, myself for my own personal life, for their personal life, for the band culture, this will be the right amount of festivals for us. And then what I did, and you're welcome to do this, band directors out there, I would document the day after the festival on my phone for the calendar, exactly what I felt like we got out of that. Was it worth it? Blah, blah, blah. And then I'd use that when I was scheduling festivals the next year. I'd go back and check those
You know,
because
I'm
the
a
excitement of
super,
being brand new, the excitement is like, yeah, let's go do it. Then I go back and go, oh, yeah,
yeah.
that was a miserable experience. So maybe we ought to do like two instead of three or three instead of four, whatever the case might be.
I will always champion notes, journals, uh, creating historical reference to go back
Yeah.
and look at next year. That's a great idea. Good for you. Um, I- Listen, this is naivete, I suppose. But the other way I gauge some of that is I kind of bring it up at a booster meeting and see what the 90% nonverbal communication back to me is.
As all the arms cross and the ankles cross and the
Or
looking at the floor.
my administrator or my transportation director, because if it's not feasible, if I go to him and say, we're looking at a festival on this date, well, all the bus is already done. That kind of
Yeah.
answers my question.
Yeah. We're done. Unless you're going to get charters. And boy, man, Lord have mercy on your soul.
Speaking
You
of
know,
budget,
yeah. Speaking of budget. Yeah. And
but you know what I
then,
mean? There,
oh,
there
yeah.
are ways to gauge that beyond, because listen, I'm oorah.
Yeah.
You tell me we're going to compete, I'm there.
How about a simple email with a survey in the spring?
What?
Said, how do y'all feel about doing it? And explain the pros and cons of each festival. And that doesn't mean they're deciding what you do, but you do need their opinion and you certainly need their help.
I'm going to tell you a story that I'm going to try not to make anybody look bad in it. My sophomore year, state marching contest was not what it is now.
Yeah.
It was an every other year event. The district. So let me back up. The district came back to my high school director and said, he said, we need to go to state marching contest. And there wasn't an area. If you got a one,
Right. I remember those days.
then you went to state marching contest.
Yeah. You received an invitation. And it was your choice.
So, we had a competitive school that was really good and went to state marching contest and won a lot. So anyway, administration came back to the director and they said, you've got a trip planned to Nashville or you can go to state marching contest. Take your pick. You get one trip. And and to the director's credit, he came and he said, hey, here's what they told me. Y'all tell me what you'd rather do. And I'm not saying it's right and I'm not saying it's wrong, but we pretty unanimously wanted to go to Nashville.
Yeah.
State marching contest didn't have the same effect on us at that time as it may or as it did later on.
Still too new.
Yeah.
To the process.
Like, okay, so we can go to Austin or we can go to Nashville.
Yeah,
We're
it's
going
a
to
pretty easy
Nashville.
choice. Yeah.
But my point is, he wasn't afraid to. And listen, he wasn't the bad guy.
Yeah.
He laid it
life,
out there.
There are choices.
So
This is
anyway,
what we
that's
got, kids.
too long of a story, but your survey is valid.
Yeah, just ask them their opinion and not just a yes, no, but say, tell me why you think this would be better or which ones would you want to go to?
So are you addressing that to the boosters, to your administration, or to your students?
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe a slightly different survey because the administration, you need to kind of explain more the what we usually spend out of our budget for it. With the booster parents, maybe you need to explain what you might need from the boosters as far as finances, if any, or do you have enough boosters to chaperone the buses and take care of uniforms, because those band parents, man, you can't do it without them,
Right.
So, and then for the kids, like what things are you in? Would this one on this date be better than this one? I think the champion that is Loy Studer up in Wichita Falls. I would go do a clinic for an all-day Saturday in concert band. And this year we're doing it we're doing a concert theme. We're doing his clinic like a region band concert. Think about that.
Okay.
So I go in Friday afternoon and work the band all day Saturday. Then we get in concert black. We do a concert for the parents,
Oh, wow.
for what we've worked on for the day. But he asks his kids, they choose the date. He gets all the information from them. And then it's one then he sets it. And then he has a little bit of power to go, and you guys said this is what was going to work.
Right.
This is what we're doing. So he's the champion of that, of asking the kids' opinion. They don't rule what we have to do, but man, they should have a lot of input.
And they
in the
sure will
process.
pull a lot harder to the direction you're trying to go if they're
Yeah,
if they have some
you're
ownership
exactly
of it.
right. And the next kind of thing to think about, if you do a whole bunch of festivals, will the critique kind of go against each other?
Hey, good point.
Because one judge will say like, I think the balance and this, and I like how you did this, and you go to another festival, well, I just really don't like how you did this, and it's the same thing, you know. And we find that in judges in the same stadium, you
Right.
know, they'll disagree with each other, and that's the kind of the problem with competitive music is that it's not just a time trial like a track meet, so it's opinionated.
Right.
So you've got to figure out how are you going to deal with that. Okay, how are
Okay.
you going to deal with that?
And I think it still comes back to, is this going to help us, or is this just going to convolute what we're trying to? Because now I got
Yeah,
to explain to the kids that no, no, we're on the right track. I don't care what.
yeah, yeah. And it brings up the next point. Do you have time in your rehearsal schedule to absorb all that critique and video with your kids if you go to like 5 festivals? Because that takes time,
Right.
you know, and a
And
lot of
actually
them,
apply it. Yeah.
yeah, and to apply it. I know a lot of them I've gone and judged. I never did this with my group because we weren't as sophisticated, I suppose. But I've seen groups that after prelims, you'll be over at the concessions as an adjudicator, and you look out in the parking lot, and the kids are all seated by their big semi trailers, and they're beaming the video up onto the semi trailer with a laser pointer, and they're having chalk talk, man. They're talking about what went bad and what went good and how we're going to fix this, and they're actually studying video in the parking lot, getting ready for finals, because it's the ones who've been announced to go to finals. And so do you have the time to do all that? And
Right.
if you do, that's awesome. It's very educational. But to go to a festival, march, then never tell the kids the critique, you know, they get the experience of marching somewhere different, but I don't know if that's really uh, educational for your kids. They
I
need to
get
hear
it.
some of the, not all the critique necessarily, but you need to break it down for them.
And I think we've talked about this to an extent before, but I would think the goal is to get your kids used to the activity of getting on a bus, going somewhere else, keeping your uniform. Did you bring everything you were supposed to? Go out and march on a field similar and or exactly where you're going to be doing contests.
Hmm.
Get back on the bus, get back home with all the kids and all the stuff. So the first time you do it isn't your UIL contest.
Right. And especially if it's prelim finals, because if you have a band that traditionally makes first divisions, you'll probably be marching at area, and
Right.
you don't want area to be the first time they've ever done prelims finals
Right. Okay.
because
That's a good point. Good point. I see
that's
it.
a whole different. So it brings festivals into a new light. It's like I need to choose that one because I do a prelims finals, and I really believe my group's strong enough. We'll probably make finals at this one. So let's do this festival. So the
Right.
kids, like you said, can go through the whole process.
That's good stuff, man. Um, how much more you got on that list?
Or just a little bit. One is some bands use festivals to add extra hours to their 8 hour rule, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with
No,
that.
no, no. I get what you're saying. I just hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, because for every contest you're in, according to the side by side, you're entitled to an extra hour for warm up and rehearsal to prep for that festival on that day. So there's bands in that power corridor that will do 2 festivals in one day. And it'll be like prelims at 2 different sites, like 15 miles apart from each other. That gives them an hour to warm up and practice, perform, then get on the buses and travel 10 minutes and
Right.
then perform prelims at another one. Then they decide which finals are going to march in. So they've got 3 extra hours of rehearsal. And the kids, if your kids are upper echelon enough and your band's that strong, it's a big benefit. So there's needs to be some talk about it. Said, is this better for my group? Because I can get 3 extra hours of rehearsal this
I
week.
was I was going to argue with you a little bit, but from the standpoint of you're probably going to call somebody in that city and say, "Can I use your field to practice before that festival?"
Oh yeah.
What I was going to say, the warm up area is probably not your best rehearsal,
Yeah.
but from the standpoint of I'm going to another high school and marching, and you get all the benefits of different area. Can you march it anywhere we are?
Yeah.
But so I see that. I see that. I think that's I'm going to have to really uh, fact bridge benefit that to what I put those kids through in that day. But
Yeah. And some bands, they enjoy that. You know what I mean? They get
I
great
do.
pride out of going to two different festivals, and then the band director picks which finals they're
So
going to
here's
march
my
in that night.
question. You have to say, is my band that band? Do we have
Yes,
that culture? Do we have that expectation yet?
yes, yeah. And a lot of that comes from the band wanting to do it, and that's okay too. And if you do something like that, you've got to figure out some kind of recovery time. When do we rest? Like when I would do area marching, there's times I would find a place like a church fellowship center, and we would rent it between prelims and finals, and then we'd march our prelims. Then we'd go there and we'd just kind of either watch some video, or they just play basketball, or they just lay down and sleep and play video games or whatever, and give them some time.
Let them
I guess it comes
disengage.
down
Yeah.
to, is the juice worth the squeeze?
Oh, there you go. Nice.
Yeah. So if you're doing it, it's like, in 9 times out of 10, I think in my situation, the juice was worth the squeeze. There is a 1 out of 10 when we all got back and thought that was not worth it.
That's not
And so
even
we
fun.
document that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Okay.
and this is a tough one to talk with directors about, because I never bring this up unless they ask me, unless they say, "Hey, Mike, what do you think about this? Is your band in an upper level of competition that they need all those festivals to prepare for area and state?
Well, I think
Or are
that's
you
where I
just
came in at
treading
the
water?"
beginning here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is your band really of that upper echelon? Maybe they've medaled in state marching the last 3 years. Perhaps they do need to do 5 festivals. That's part of their band culture. They've got things at that level, but if you've got a band that just made a 4 last year, you're not going to make them better by doing 5 festivals. You'd be better off let's just rehearse, guys, and let's memorize our music, and we're going to go for a second division this year and be excellent. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've seen bands cheer for themselves getting a 2,
That
because
is
the
an
year before they had a 4 or
absolute truth.
5. And they'll go, wow, and people go, whoa, and I know good and well. I said, yeah, that they earned a second division, and they're excited about it because they usually make 4s. So they were excited, and that's cool. But would it benefit that band to have done 5 festivals?
Right.
Probably not. Probably would not have been worth all the expense. We could have bought better equipment for all the
Right.
expense that we did, or hire some people to come in and work with the band.
You say, how about
Yeah.
lesson teachers, clinicians?
Yeah, yeah. Have people come in. Of course, I clinic a lot, so I didn't want to say clinician. So I'm glad you said that.
Well,
But yeah, they can afford to bring people in to work with them. Okay.
so I'm going to say this because I believe it, and I think you just reinforced it. Your journey is your journey. Don't try to be somebody else, and don't try to have the same journey somebody else has.
Yes.
You are where you are. What is that you always say? Where your feet are,
Yeah. Be where your feet are. Yeah.
and be honest enough to say, this is where we are.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with where you are unless you stay there.
Yeah. Or you get worse.
Yeah.
You
You know what I
just have
mean?
to improve a little bit, man. So, in this whole thing, to kind of put a bow on it, there's not one answer. We've kind of gone around in circles sometimes because it warrants going around in circles,
Right.
because every band is absolutely different. So if one director asks me, do you think I should do this, or should I do the San Angelo thing and then drive up to Wiley to do the Wiley thing and do 2 prelims in one day? And some bands I would say, yeah, I think that's a great idea. Other bands I'd say, I'm not sure if that's really the right approach. I think I would put all my eggs in one basket and just go forward and tell the kids we're going to have a fun day, and then take them to putt putt
Right.
afterwards, and have some social work with them, so they can enjoy being in the band program. So you just have to know your band. So I
Hey.
hope the whole podcast didn't just go in circles and everyone's like, well, they never made a point. I hope that never happens. But the
Can't
point
pin us
is,
down. We didn't say that.
yeah, analyze all the things we talked about and see how they fit your band, and it'll be a worthwhile podcast and a worthwhile choice of festivals.
I left a long pause on purpose because I'm going to decide whether I leave this part in or not.
Okay.
This is off the wall here. But I think I remember that. Is it worth going to one of those better festivals if your entire goal, let's say we go do we march our time, and then you put your kids up there to observe, to listen, to see what really good bands look like?
Yeah.
Or do you even maybe say, listen, we're going to this festival, not mandatory, but if you want to see what we're trying to become, let's all go to this festival and watch all these, let's take a trip to North Dallas, and
Yeah. Watch a BOA contest.
you know what I mean? You think there's validity to that?
Oh yeah, I used to do that. I used to haul the kids to DCI shows in the summer, and then I'd haul them maybe to a BOA regional, super regional in Dallas Fort Worth, so they could see all those big old boys, those 5A, 6As, and now we can't be those bands, but we can steal from them.
Yeah,
And the kids had fun riding the bus, and they had fun eating different food and hanging out, and they also had fun watching the bands. That was kind of
exactly. That's
cool.
my point. Real band
Yeah,
kids enjoy, and I realize this episode's been kind of centered at real band kids, but as opposed to other disciplines.
yeah,
I think there's some validity to it. Okay.
yeah.
I appreciate you, friend.
Hey, you bet. It's been a blast.
Later.
Bye.